My own sister tried to steal my inheritance by convincing everyone I was mentally unstable. What she didn't know was that I'd been recording every conversation for months. The day I played those recordings at the family meeting, well, let me tell you exactly what happened. But first, you need to understand how we got there. How someone I trusted with my deepest secrets became the person who nearly destroyed my life. It started 3 months after Dad's funeral. I was still wearing his cologne on my jacket some mornings, still expecting his coffee cup to be in the sink when I came downstairs. The grief was this heavy thing that followed me everywhere, like a shadow that weighed 1,000 pounds. Sarah called me on a Tuesday. I remember because I was sorting through Dad's tool shed, trying to decide what to keep and what to donate. My hands were covered in decades of accumulated dust and motor oil when my phone buzzed. "Hey, we need to talk about the house," she said. "No hello. No how are you holding up. Just straight to business." I wiped my hands on an old rag that smelled like WD-40 and Dad's Old Spice. "What about it?" "Well, I've been thinking. Maybe it's time to sell. You know, split the money and move on with our lives." The words hit me like ice water. This house. Dad had built the back deck with his own hands. Mom's rose garden was still blooming in the front yard. Every squeaky floorboard held a memory. "Sarah, we just buried him 3 months ago." "Exactly. And you've been living there alone, talking to yourself, barely leaving the house." "It's not healthy." Talking to myself? I'd been having conversations with Dad, sure. Telling him about my day while I made coffee in his favorite mug. But everyone grieves differently, right? I'm processing things at my own pace. That's what I'm worried about. Her voice got softer, more careful. "I think you might need some help. Professional help." There it was. The first seed planted. Over the next few weeks, Sarah started showing up unannounced. She'd let herself in with the spare key Dad had given her years ago and find me in his study, going through old photo albums or reading his books. "You're sitting in the dark again," she'd say, flipping on every light switch like darkness was a disease she could cure with enough wattage. I was just thinking, that's the problem. You're thinking too much. When's the last time you showered? When's the last time you went grocery shopping? I looked down at myself. Okay, so maybe I was wearing the same sweatshirt I'd had on for 3 days. Maybe the refrigerator was pretty empty except for leftover Chinese takeout and a gallon of milk that was probably questionable. But grief doesn't follow a schedule. It doesn't care if you're presentable or if your kitchen is stocked. Sarah started bringing our cousin Mike with her. Mike, who'd always been the golden child, the one with the perfect job and the perfect wife and the perfect everything. He'd stand in Dad's living room with his hands in his pockets, looking around like he was appraising the place. "You know," he said during one of these visits, "Sarah's got a point. This place is pretty big for one person. Lot of maintenance, lot of memories." "Memories are good things, Mike." "Sure, but sometimes too many memories can trap you in the past." I started to notice they were coordinating their visits. Sarah would call to check on me, ask specific questions. "Did you remember to pay the electric bill? Are you eating regular meals? How's your sleep?" Then Mike would show up a day later and somehow know exactly what we'd talked about. The realization crept up on me slowly, like cold water rising. They were building a case. I started paying more attention to their questions, their comments. Sarah would mention my erratic behavior to Mike right in front of me, like I wasn't there. Mike would nod seriously and suggest I might benefit from professional guidance. Professional guidance. That's when I knew. They weren't worried about my mental health. They were worried about my inheritance. Dad's will was straightforward. The house and most of his assets went to me, with smaller portions going to Sarah and a few other relatives. But there was a clause, something Dad's lawyer had insisted on including. If I was ever declared mentally incompetent, the estate would be distributed differently, more evenly. Sarah had always resented that Dad left me the house. She'd made comments over the years about how unfair it was, how just because I was the one who stayed close to home, who visited every Sunday, who helped him with his medications and doctor's appointments, that didn't make me more deserving. But apparently, it did make me the primary beneficiary. The day I figured out their plan, I was in Dad's study again, going through his desk drawers. I found a letter he'd written but never sent, addressed to Sarah. In it, he explained his decision about the will. He wrote about how I'd been there for him and Mom during the hard years, how I'd sacrificed job opportunities in other cities to stay close, how I'd never asked for anything in return. Sarah always wanted to leave, he wrote. She always had bigger dreams than this small town could hold. I respect that. But when your mother was sick, when I needed help with her medications and appointments, it was always our younger daughter who showed up. She earned this responsibility. I sat in his chair, holding that letter, and something shifted inside me. The grief was still there, but it was joined by something sharper. Anger. They wanted to use my grief against me. They wanted to paint my natural response to losing my father as evidence of mental instability. That's when I decided to start recording our conversations. I bought a small digital recorder, nothing fancy. Just something that could fit in my pocket and capture clear audio. I told myself I was protecting myself, creating evidence in case things got uglier. I had no idea how ugly they were about to get. The first recording was from a phone call with Sarah the following Tuesday. I talked to Dr. Morrison, she said. Dr. Morrison had been our family doctor for 20 years. About what? About you. About my concerns. My blood went cold. You talked to my doctor about me? Without my permission. I'm your sister. I'm worried about you. He said there are signs to watch for. Depression, isolation, neglect of personal care. Those are normal grief responses. Not for this long. Not to this degree. I pressed the record button on the device in my pocket. What exactly did you tell him? The truth. That you're living alone in that big house, barely taking care of yourself, talking to Dad like he's still there. I never said I talked to Dad like he's still there. There was a pause. You do though. I've heard you. When I come to check on you. I can hear you having conversations. Conversations. Like I was delusional, hearing voices. Sarah, thinking out loud isn't the same as having conversations with dead people. But you understand how it might look to other people, right? How it might seem concerning. That's when I knew she was building a narrative. Every visit, every question, every concerned phone call was designed to create a picture of someone who couldn't take care of themselves, someone who wasn't mentally competent to handle a significant inheritance. Over the next month, I recorded everything. Phone calls, visits, conversations with Mike and other family members who'd apparently been recruited to the cause. The most damaging recording came from a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. I was upstairs when Sarah and Mike arrived for one of their check-ins. They must have thought I was in the shower because they started talking freely in the living room. Dr. Morrison said he can't make an official assessment without seeing her directly, Sarah said. So get her to go see him. I'm trying. But she's suspicious now. She knows we're coordinating. What about the lawyer? What did he say about the competency clause? He said we'd need medical documentation. Probably a psychiatric evaluation. My hand was shaking as I held the recorder near the top of the stairs. And if we can prove she's not capable of managing the estate, then it gets redistributed according to the secondary provisions. Which means we each get a third instead of me getting scraps and you getting nothing. There it was. The real motivation laid bare. How long do you think this will take? Not long. Look at her. She's barely functional. Getting the documentation should be easy. I had to bite my lip to keep from making a sound. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that for a moment I couldn't breathe. But I kept recording. Over the following weeks, their efforts intensified. Sarah started bringing different family members to witness my decline. She'd call ahead and suggest they drop by, always when she knew I'd be at my worst. Early morning when I was still in my pajamas, late evening when I was tired and emotional. Aunt Linda came by and found me crying over a box of Mom's old jewelry. Instead of comfort, I got questions about whether I was handling everything okay and suggestions that maybe I should talk to someone professional. Cousin Jenny stopped by and caught me having coffee in Dad's favorite chair, wearing his old cardigan. She made a big show of being concerned about me clinging to the past and asked if I was ready to move forward with my life. Each visit was like a performance, with me as the unwitting star of a play designed to make me look unstable. But I was recording everything now. Every staged intervention, every leading question, every piece of evidence they thought they were gathering to use against me. The breaking point came when Sarah arranged for Dr. Morrison to make a house call. I knew something was up when she called that morning. "Hey, I'm bringing someone by to check on you today." "Who?" "Dr. Morrison." I told him about my concerns, and he offered to stop by after his rounds. My heart started pounding. This was it. This was their move. "I don't need a house call, Sarah. If I want to see Dr. Morrison, I can make an appointment." "But you haven't been making appointments. You haven't been taking care of yourself." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. And today we're going to get you the help you need." The way she said it, like my cooperation was optional, like this was happening whether I wanted it or not, that's when I knew I had to act. I spent the morning preparing. I showered, put on clean clothes, tidied up the house, made sure I looked as presentable and competent as possible. I charged my recorder and tested the audio quality. When Sarah arrived with Dr. Morrison, I was ready. "Hello, Dr. Morrison. This is unexpected. Your sister is concerned about you," he said, glancing around the living room like he was looking for evidence of my supposed decline. "Concerned about what, specifically?" Sarah jumped in. "We've talked about this. Your isolation, your neglect of basic self-care, the way you're clinging to Dad's belongings." "Dr. Morrison," I said, ignoring Sarah completely, "I'm curious about something. What exactly did my sister tell you about my condition?" He looked uncomfortable. "She expressed concerns about your mental state following your father's passing. And based on those concerns, you decided to make a house call without my consent?" "Well, your sister seemed very worried." "Did she tell you she's been coordinating with other family members to document my behavior? Did she mention that she stands to inherit significantly more money if I'm declared mentally incompetent?" Sarah's face went white. "That's not, you're being paranoid." "Am I?" I pulled out my recorder. "Dr. Morrison, would you like to hear what my sister really thinks about my mental state?" I played the recording from their conversation in my living room. Their voices filled the room, crystal clear. Dr. Morrison said we'd need medical documentation. Probably a psychiatric evaluation. And if we can prove she's not capable of managing the estate, then it gets redistributed according to the secondary provisions. The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Morrison looked like he wanted to disappear into the couch. Sarah was staring at the recorder like it was a snake that had just bitten her. "I have hours of recordings," I said quietly. "Conversations where you discuss how to make me look unstable. Plans to manipulate my grief for financial gain. Evidence of a coordinated campaign to steal my inheritance." "That's not... We were worried about you." "Were you worried when you told Mike that getting the documentation should be easy because I'm barely functional? Were you worried when you coached Aunt Linda on what questions to ask? Were you worried when you scheduled this house call without my knowledge or consent?" Sarah tried to speak, but nothing came out. "Dr. Morrison," I continued, "I think you should know that I've been functioning quite well, actually. I've been paying all my bills on time, maintaining the property, handling all of Dad's estate business efficiently. The only thing I've been struggling with is normal grief, which my sister has been trying to weaponize against me." Dr. Morrison cleared his throat. I think there may have been some miscommunication here." "There was no miscommunication. There was manipulation. And attempted fraud." I turned to Sarah. "Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out? Did you think I'd just sit here and let you steal everything Dad worked for?" "It's not stealing. It's looking out for your best interests." "My best interests? Or your bank account?" The house call ended quickly after that. Dr. Morrison practically ran to his car, and Sarah left without saying another word. But I knew it wasn't over. 2 days later, I got a call from Dad's lawyer. "I've had some interesting conversations," he said. Your sister contacted me about potentially challenging your competency. I figured she might. She also seemed surprised when I told her that I'd need much more substantial evidence than family concerns to pursue something like that. Medical records, professional psychiatric evaluations, documented incidents of actual incompetence. And when I explained the legal requirements and the potential consequences of filing a frivolous challenge, well, let's just say she seemed to lose interest quickly. I smiled for the first time in weeks. But the real resolution came the following Sunday. Sarah had been calling and texting all week, trying to explain, trying to apologize, trying to minimize what she'd done. I ignored most of it, but finally agreed to meet with her and the rest of the family. Not to reconcile. To end this once and for all. We gathered in Dad's living room. Sarah, Mike, Aunt Linda, Cousin Jenny, a few others who'd been part of their little intervention squad. They all looked uncomfortable, like they knew they'd been caught but weren't sure how much trouble they were in. I asked you all here, I began, because I think there are some things that need to be said out loud. I had my recorder on the coffee table, visible to everyone. For the past 2 months, some of you have been participating in what I can only call a conspiracy. A plan to have me declared mentally incompetent so that my inheritance could be redistributed. That's not what this was about, Sarah said quickly. Isn't it? I pressed play on a recording. Her voice filled the room. Getting the documentation should be easy. I played another clip. Mike's voice. How long do you think this will take? And another. Sarah again. We each get a third instead of me getting scraps. The room was dead silent. You used my grief as a weapon against me. You turned my natural response to losing my father into evidence of mental illness. You coached family members to gather information, you manipulated a doctor into making an unauthorized house call, and you planned to steal my inheritance. I looked around the room at faces I'd known and trusted my entire life. But here's what you didn't understand. Dad didn't leave me this house because he loved me more. He left it to me because he knew I'd take care of it. Because he knew I'd preserve the memories, maintain the property, respect what he and Mom built here. I picked up a framed photo of our parents from the side table. And he was right to trust me. Because even when my own sister tried to take it away, even when people I loved betrayed that trust, I protected what he wanted me to protect. Sarah was crying now, but I wasn't finished. I want you all to understand something very clearly. This house, this inheritance, these weren't gifts. They were responsibilities. Dad trusted me with them because he believed I would honor that responsibility. And despite everything you've put me through, I still will. I turned to Sarah directly. You're my sister, and I love you. But what you did was unforgivable. You tried to steal from me by convincing everyone I was crazy. You manipulated grief. You lied to doctors. You turned family members against me. I was worried about you. No. You were worried about money. And the saddest part is, if you'd just been honest, if you'd just talked to me about feeling left out or resentful, we could have worked something out. But instead, you chose betrayal. I stood up, walked to the window that looked out on Mom's rose garden. I'm not declaring any of you persona non grata. I'm not cutting you out of my life completely. But things will never be the same between us. The trust is broken, and trust is something you can't just rebuild with an apology. The meeting ended quietly. People filed out one by one, some trying to apologize, others just looking ashamed. Sarah was the last to leave. I really was worried about you, she said at the door. Maybe you were at first. But it became about something else, and we both know it. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Will you ever forgive me? I thought about that for a long moment. I don't know. Ask me again in a year. Or 5 years. Maybe by then I'll be able to separate the sister I grew up with from the person who tried to steal my father's legacy. She left, and I was alone in the house again. But this time, the solitude felt different. It felt like choice rather than isolation. It felt like peace rather than abandonment. I made coffee in Dad's favorite mug and sat in his chair, wearing his old cardigan. Not because I was clinging to the past, but because some connections are worth preserving. Some memories are worth protecting. And some legacies are worth fighting for. The inheritance was never really about money. It was about trust, about responsibility, about honoring the people who came before us. Sarah never understood that, and maybe she never will. But I do. And that's why Dad was right to trust me with it. 6 months later, Sarah and I have started talking again. Short conversations, careful ones. She's in therapy now, working through her own issues with money and fairness and sibling rivalry. I hope it helps her. Mike moved to another state. Aunt Linda sends me awkward Christmas cards. Cousin Jenny pretends nothing ever happened. And me? I'm still here in Dad's house, tending Mom's roses, maintaining the deck he built with his own hands. I still make coffee in his mug some mornings, still wear his cardigan when it's cold. But I don't talk to him anymore. I don't need to, because I know he can see what I've done with the responsibility he gave me. I know he's proud that I protected it, even when protection meant standing up to people I loved. The grief is still there, but it's gentler now. It's become part of the landscape of my life rather than the defining feature of it. And sometimes, when I'm working in the garden or fixing something on the deck, I catch myself smiling. Because I know I did right by him. I honored his trust, preserved his legacy, and protected what he wanted protected. Even when the people who should have helped me tried to take it all away. That's the thing about trust, about responsibility, about doing what's right even when it's hard. Sometimes the people closest to you will test that resolve. Sometimes they'll try to make you doubt yourself, question your judgment, believe their version of your story instead of your own. But if you know who you are, if you know what you stand for, if you know what's worth protecting, then you'll find the strength to fight for it. Even if you have to fight alone. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and doing what's right? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that matter.